From the New Arts and Media Studios in Milwaukee, I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. I have a genuine question. It's not just a device to get us into the topic. No, it's a real question. And spoiler alert, I'm not going to answer the question. But I am going to offer some thoughts. And the question is this. Should we welcome former MAGA folks into the anti-fascist coalition? And if so, how do we do that? Because political opinions are dynamic. They change. People change. They learn new facts. They change their ideas. Their whims change. For 100 different reasons, politics is kind of flexible for some people. Now, for the Orange Menace voters who are reconsidering, well, that's great. But how exactly are we to think about this anti-fascist coalition? Now, I'm going to start with an admittedly kind of corny metaphor. So here's my metaphor, or my analogy. It's a sports analogy. And again, kind of corny, but stick with me for a second. Think of the United States, the nation, as the NFL, the league. All the different factions, Republicans, Democrats, progressives, Democratic Socialists, moderates, everybody. They're all the different teams. Okay? So then the policy fights that we have every day, the debates, the ups and the downs, the issues, the headlines in the news, those are the games we play. There are winners, there are losers. People have hot streaks and cold streaks, and there are surprise upsets, and it's dynamic. Things are happening throughout the course of the year. And then primary elections come along, where we're going to choose our candidates. Well, that's the playoffs. Some factions fall away, others move on. Until finally we get to Election Day, which is the Super Bowl. So say the Democrats or the left are the San Francisco 49ers versus the Republicans or the right, and they're the Houston Texans. And now comes Election Day, and we have a final score. We have a winner and a loser. All right, this is why I'm using this dopey metaphor. Everyone in my little scenario here belongs to the same league. All the teams, all the coaches, all the players, they belong to the same league, and the league has rules, and it's all under one umbrella. That's our country. The league is the country. And of course, players and coaches switch teams once in a while. It's not uncommon at all. That's what I started with. Politics moves and shifts. But everyone plays by the rules. You fight like hell on game day. The winners and losers shake hands, and then repeat the whole process. But the key element here is we have to play by the same rules. Now, applying this to our potential coalition with the former Trumpers or the MAGA folks or the America Firsters or whatever you want to call them, well, many of them still don't seem to really care about the rules. I mean, when you listen to them, you know, they criticize the Orange Menace and we get excited. Oh, great, you're on our team. But they're upset about grocery prices or gas prices. They're upset about Israel and Iran, about policies. Okay, we agree, great. But they don't seem to know or acknowledge, understand, care that he's a damn fascist, attempting an all-out coup. There can be no denying that. Look at the attempts they're making at election rigging. What they've already done in the past, January 6th at the top of the list. Firing everyone who's not a loyalist from the government, stacking the bureaucracy with loyalists, including DOJ prosecutors, including judges. Yeah, only some judges are elected. Throughout the system, many or most of them are appointed. So they're stacking the whole system against us. And the people in our proposed coalition never talk about these things. If anything, they're fine with it. Now, I don't want to talk about famous people or pundits necessarily, but I am going to talk about a few of them because they represent schools of thought. They have listeners, they have viewers, they have readers, they have followers who no doubt share these opinions. People like Tucker Carlson, very critical of the Orange Menace recently, especially when it comes to Israel and the war in Iran. Megyn Kelly has publicly said that the Orange Menace has lost, quote, multiple steps mentally. The infamous Joe Rogan calls all of this insane. Candace Owens calls the Orange Menace a chronic disappointment. And yes, all of these critiques are real, but they're entirely issue specific. They're not a denunciation of the Orange Menace as an authoritarian. They don't get to that. I think they're still okay with it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, behind all of her vitriol and criticism, is still 99% with him on policy, on strategy. So I'm not sure what to do with these people, and more importantly, with the people who read and follow. We share their disdain of certain policies, but the anti-fascist, pro-democracy critique, they're not with us. They don't seem to be with us at all. And again, these are just a few famous names. I'm really talking about my fellow citizens, my fellow voters, friends and neighbors in some cases. So how do I think about this coalition? Can I be in a coalition with fascist apologists? I don't know. If it helps to defeat the Orange Menace and the current crop of Republicans, then yeah, I guess. But what's next? They don't seem to care about the rules of the game, of the nation. We're not on the same field of play, getting back to my dumb little metaphor. MAGA fascism is not one of the teams in my analogy. MAGA fascism is a rowdy gang of thugs with guns and knives who storm the field and attempt to take over the game entirely. They want to end the game. They want to destroy the NFL itself and rewrite the rules. No, check that. They don't want to rewrite the rules. They want to eliminate all rules. Whoever has the power wins. There are no rules. The Orange Menace himself says so every day. He infamously quoted Napoleon, "He who saves his country does not violate any law," agreeing with Richard Nixon, "If the president does it, it's not illegal." Former Acting Solicitor General Sarah M. Harris told Congress the Justice Department would not defend laws limiting the president's ability to remove independent agency officials. Yeah, random hiring and firing based on regime loyalty is against the law. And she conceded that fact and just very calmly stated that the Department of Injustice would ignore those laws. Stephen Miller, the most infamous of them all, quote, "We live in a world, in the real world, that is governed by strength, that is governed by force, that is governed by power. These are the iron laws of the world that have existed since the beginning of time." It's been widely reported from sources within the White House that there's a willingness to invoke the Insurrection Act and deploy military forces within the United States while federalizing some National Guard units if and when they deem it necessary. We've already seen examples of that. Pete Hegseth, Department of War Crimes, quote, "We don't fight with stupid rules of engagement. We untie the hands of our warfighters to intimidate, demoralize, hunt, and kill the enemies of our country. No quarter, no mercy for our enemies." No quarter means, no, we don't have to take prisoners. We just kill everybody. He stated war crimes as official policy. This is who we're dealing with, and none of this seems to concern the Tucker Carlsons, the Megyn Kellys, the Joe Rogans, the Candace Owens of the world, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world, the friends, family, and neighbors who we would like to join in a coalition, but all they seem to care about is the price of eggs and the price of gas. And oh yeah, maybe they're coming around to the fact that Israel's not such a good friend. But all the rest of it, the fascist policies, the fascist language, the fascist ideology, that kind of thinking can never be part of a compromise. It can't be part of a coalition. So I ask these pundits, I ask my fellow citizens, friends, family, and neighbors, 100% full-throated renunciation. You can't stop short of that. I mean, if they don't, how do we deal with them? How do we welcome dialogue? How do we partner with people like this? Do we praise them when they're right about the economy, about Israel, about Iran? I don't know. But whatever we do, we cannot lose sight of the larger goal, a diverse country that plays by the rules. And by diverse, I mean that to include a wide range of political opinion. I've never been afraid of that. Let's have open debates. Let's have the teams on the field. Let's fight it out according to the rules. So, the question then is, does my coalition with the Tucker Carlsons of the world and the rest, and their viewers and followers, does forming a coalition with them move us toward the goal of a diverse country that plays by the rules? See, I don't think so. I think it just kicks that can down the road and, in fact, makes things even worse because it actually maintains, it upholds MAGA-ism because they're not challenging the fascist nature of MAGA. Imagine if United States policy changed and we ditched Israel. Okay, you're no longer our friend, like what most Americans feel already, okay? So we ditch Israel. We end the Iran fiasco. Don't ask me how, I don't know. But just imagine now if we did that. Imagine if egg prices and gas prices went down. What, then everything would be fine? You think the people I've been talking about would stay in our coalition to defeat the regime? No, they would just be happy with the price of eggs and gas down and the end of Iran and Israel, and they'd say, fine, go on with the rest of your racist, sexist, fascist agenda. That is not a diverse country that plays by the rules. That's allowing the thugs with guns and knives to obliterate the game itself. A diverse country that plays by the rules, all I'm asking for. And that is such a small ask compared to what I really want. A social anarchist, borderless, moneyless world. That's what I'm ultimately after. All I'm asking for in this moment, and what I'm asking my coalition to bring about, is a diverse country that plays by the rules. MAGA fascism cannot be part of that. So, my question: should we welcome former MAGA into the anti-fascist coalition? I honestly don't know. Join me in criticizing Israel, Iran. Join me in questioning his mental state. Great. But after that, I honestly don't know. These people are not welcome in whatever comes next. Short term? Yeah, I guess so. End this regime. But midterm, MAGA has to be destroyed, banished to history, nowhere near power ever again. And we do that by creating what FDR proposed in the Second Bill of Rights: left populism, reduce or eliminate the conditions that make the people susceptible to fascism in the first place. That's an old and familiar story. And then long term, a social anarchist, borderless, moneyless world. That's my long term. But short term, end the regime. Welcome former MAGA into our coalition. I don't know. Tell me, help me. You tell me. How do we do that? Jesse Wells, are you familiar with him? Singer-songwriter, kind of broke through last year, won a bunch of Grammys. Everything that happens in the news, he writes a song about it and has it on YouTube by the afternoon. He's kind of amazing. Dylan-esque solo voice and guitar. Anyway, he wrote a song that really hit me. It's called Good Morning America. And some of the lyrics: good morning America, good evening America, I love you, you can like it or don't. We're tired, but we ain't wore out. Gee whiz, it'll be good to be home. Someday we're going to know this is home. And it got me because, I just love that motif of we're on a long and very difficult journey. And Jesus, won't it be great to be home again? Meaning some semblance of sanity, of normalcy. The world was never perfect. We're always striving. But God, we could go to bed at night and we could get up in the morning without this constant dread. If you're unfamiliar with the work of Jesse Wells, I highly recommend you check out his music. Yeah, it really will be great when it feels like home again. instead of this weird trip we're on with this dysfunctional family. The Orange Menace is dementia grandpa. RFK Jr. is the crazy uncle. Pete Hegseth, drunk uncle at the end of the bar. And the entire Republican Party is the sniveling, cowering family members afraid to say anything because they want the inheritance. I think most of us understand the insanity. We see it. We still can't figure out what to do about it. So on Friday, Iran announces the Strait of Hormuz is open to all shipping. And people just go nuts over this. The stock market, global oil prices, mainstream media, everybody overreacts. I mean, wild overreaction to the point of absurdity. The markets just go nuts. Oil prices plunge. The first little detail we notice is they said, Iran said, oh, it's open for the remainder of the ceasefire, which is only a couple of days. It may be over by the time you hear this. But everybody, they have their reasons for going nuts. The markets, well, it's just one big gambling den. These guys are shooting craps. They're high rollers. Go big or go home. They're just placing their bets. It has nothing to do with reasonable analysis of any situation. The fact that the global economy runs on these markets, good Lord, why do you think I'm an anarchist? Mainstream media? Of course. Sensationalist, headline chasing, clickbaiting. Of course they're going to go all knee-jerk reactionary over this. It's their damn business model. Now these rumors flying around. The regime, of course, is weaponizing the news, trying to exploit it to advance their own agenda, to spin their own lies. So now there are all sorts of rumors about who gave up what and negotiations. I think at one point the Orange Menace said, oh, yeah, they agreed to give up all nuclear ambitions. It's all just, don't buy any of it. I mean, any of it. Don't get me wrong, this whole thing is going to end at some point. It has to. Things don't go on forever. At some point, this is going to end. But however this damn thing ends, the Orange Menace and his regime can get exactly zero credit. They started an illegal, immoral, and incredibly stupid war. Iran understands they have to live in a functioning world. So yeah, they may give up what may look like concessions. Do not give the Orange regime 1 ounce of credit for any of it. The United States is the loser in this thing. We're all losers. For the Orange regime to claim victory, and of course they will, you just have to know that there is zero truth to any of it. The United States is the loser 100 different ways. As a nation, we've surrendered our moral leadership, surrendered the position as leader of the free world. Now, this is all bogus anyway. But a lot of people believed in that, and they ran the world accordingly, that we somehow had this position of world leader. That's all over. That's just over forever. Now, for my money, that's fine. The point is, he and his gangster regime get zero credit and all the blame. And with every day's headlines, I am more deeply convinced that our agenda here on the log is the only reasonable position to have. We have to revolutionize the way we think about the economy. We must establish local economies around the world so we don't rely on the Strait of Hormuz or any other particular supply chain. I mean, we all knew the Strait of Hormuz was important. I think this really clarified that. Of course, oil, natural gas. Oh, then we found out, fertilizer. Food for much of the world. I mean, we learned this whole supply chain thing during COVID. At least we should have learned a lesson. I don't think we learned anything from COVID. But, mothers should never fear not having formula for their babies, for example. The late night guys made a lot of jokes about helium. Most of the world's supply of helium goes through the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, they breathed in the helium balloon and they talked funny. But I didn't know this, that helium was so important for medical and scientific imaging, MRIs. It's used in electronics, the manufacturing of microchips. Yeah, turns out helium's more than just a party joke. Anyway, not to get Not to get too deeply into that. Just an example of an over-reliance on any particular region or any particular passageway or particular supply chain or any particular nation with its own particular borders and its own particular system. We cannot continue to live under this constant threat that at any time some idiot like the Orange Menace can foul up the entire world economy. I mean, impact people's lives. They're not getting their medicine. They're not getting their food. They're not getting the energy they need to keep their world going. All because dementia grandpa and drunk uncle decided it would be fun to kill a bunch of Muslims. Borders got to go. Money got to go. Production and distribution of food, medicine, manufactured goods, everything must be, to the greatest extent possible, local. So by Saturday already, Iran has announced that they've closed the Strait of Hormuz again. And by the time you hear this, it may be opened and closed and opened again and closed again. Who knows? The point remains the same. Don't listen to a damn thing the American fascist regime has to say. I'm still just dumbfounded that reporters continue to have these exchanges with the Orange Menace. It's just an exercise in futility. He's just belching nonsense. He's just riffing off the top of his head. Any headline that begins, "The President said," or "The President posted," just ignore it. I was really disappointed in the BBC. I was watching earlier today. They were actually carrying him live. I thought the BBC was a little better than that. He just blathered on with his usual nonsense. He's got like a half a dozen to a dozen tired stories that he repeats over and over again, filled with lies. He makes people stand behind him in the Oval Office. He sits at the desk and then just riffs, just talks for sometimes up to 45 minutes, an hour, and they just have to stand there. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about this. What I want to do here to close out, I want to just give you a couple of headlines. So basically, if there was a segment title for this, it's things we're not going to talk about today. I don't have the time, the energy. I'm not in the right mood. So we're not going to talk about these things. But I do want to bring them to your attention. Chuck Schumer just has to go. The latest incident, he was one of only 7 Democrats who joined Republicans in opposing a measure to block arms sales to Israel. Of course that's what we should do. The bill was a joint resolution introduced by Senator Bernie Sanders. It would have halted the sale of military bulldozers to Israel. The senators who voted against the measure, Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, Chris Coons of Delaware, Catherine Cortez Masto of Nevada. It's the usual suspects here. Of course, John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, Jackie Rosen of Nevada, and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Yeah, they all have to go. Chuck Schumer has to be run out of town as leader. He cannot be the majority leader when the Democrats take the Senate, because I think they're going to. This is just enough. If you're still sending billions of dollars and military bulldozers to Israel at this point, you have no clue what the American people want, what your own base wants. Nobody wants this, except congressional Republicans, AIPAC, and Benjamin Netanyahu. Nobody else does. Also, 5 more boats attacked. At least that's the last I saw. Who knows how many more. Eastern Pacific, total of 178 people brutally murdered in small boats off the coast of South and Central America. U.S. military just indiscriminately killing people with no evidence, with no due process, with no nothing. This is straight up murder, using your tax dollars and the United States military and drunk Uncle Pete Hegseth's Department of War Crimes. At some point, these people need to be behind bars. Another story we're not going to talk about today, but maybe we will in the future because I'm pretty interested in this. Of course, Sam Altman's house was attacked by a guy with a Molotov cocktail. There have been now numerous warehouse fires. There was the one that got most of the coverage because the arsonist videotaped himself lighting this massive California warehouse on fire. Allegedly motivated by anti-capitalism sentiment, compared himself to Luigi Mangione. You could hear his voice repeating on this video several times, "All you had to do was pay us enough to live," as he's setting flame to this massive warehouse. So this is going to take some thought. Check out #LuigiWasRight. I want to have conversations about this. The #LuigiWasRight movement is, I don't know how to describe it, but it's not nothing. And then one more story I just want to mention. Virginia has now signed on to the National Popular Vote Compact. That's an agreement that states can sign on to, that they pledge to award all of their delegates to the presidential candidate who wins the popular vote. So say in my state of Wisconsin, candidate X wins Wisconsin, but candidate Y wins the national popular vote. Under this compact, and Wisconsin is not a signatory yet, I'm calling for that, then Wisconsin would award all of their delegates to the popular vote winner, not the winner of Wisconsin. So the compact doesn't go into effect until there are enough states signed up to reach the required 270 electoral votes, because that's what you need to win. With Virginia signing on, and their 18 electoral votes, that brings it up to 222 of the required 270. We are within striking distance. So we'll talk more about this in the future. In the meantime, I encourage you to look it up. Again, the National Popular Vote Compact. It's a great idea. It basically, what it does is it eliminates the Electoral College without a constitutional amendment, without an act of Congress, without nothing. If enough states sign on to this plan, the Electoral College becomes null and void. I mean, they still have to certify the election, but what becomes impossible is for the popular vote winner to lose. So this would be fantastic. And I leave you with that because let's leave with something encouraging. All right. This and all episodes can be heard at the website, charlespurcell.com, or on your favorite podcast platform. Thanks to our flagship terrestrial station, River West Radio in Milwaukee. Find us on Blue Sky and Substack. Peter Donalds wrote and performed our theme song. A reminder to listen to Peter's weekly music program, We the People, songs of freedom, justice, and solidarity, in your feed every weekend. I hope you enjoy it. All right, there it is. I love you. I'll see you out there.